I just want to start off by saying that this is part 2 of a 2-part sermon, but have no fear if you were not here last week. I think it will sort of stand on its own, so we'll be all right. So now, you'll get that in there. Now, a sermon on community written in solitude. I'd like us to start off today with a bit of contemplative silence. I'm going to give you some prompts in a moment so you won't be completely abandoned in meditation land. But don't close your eyes. Feel free to look around, move around, shift, adjust, and think about this. When was the last time or a time that you felt awe in this room? A-W-E, awe. In this room, in this building. Who was there? Are those people here now? Is there anyone missing? What did the room look like? What did it sound like? What did it smell like? Did you laugh in awe? Cry in awe? Did you applaud in awe? Did you freeze dumbstruck in awe? Were you silent? When was a time you felt awe in this building? And for the less hyperbolic among us, when was the last time you felt something somewhat close to feeling awe in this building? Maybe it was a song, a play, a sermon, a celebration, a concern, an outburst, a joke, or something that happened in complete silence. The last time I encountered awe in this room was earlier this month at our May 3rd Agape service. I was sitting up here at the front, and we'd already had our sermon moment and our communion moment and all of the regular traditional moments you expect in a Sunday service, even at a quirky place like Judson. And we were collecting the offering while our very own Essie Borden and Michael Conley performed the Gershwin classic, Nice Work If You Can Get It. Throughout the service, 2 of our newer additions to the Judson community, toddlers Esfahan and Jwali, had been traipsing around the room, making toddler noise and doing toddler things while their mothers chased them around and tried to make sure that they weren't getting in serious trouble, just toddler trouble. But then Essie began to sing. And Jawali marched up from the back, right to where Essie was standing, and began to reach out to her. Not wanting to interrupt Essie's performance, I leaned down and motioned for Jawali to come over to me, and she did. And she sat in my lap on the floor for the remaining few minutes of the song, watching Essie intently and pretending that she too had a microphone in her hand. Now, once I got over my fear that Essie might have been distracted by the demonstrative adoration of her toddler admirer, it was very pastoral. I was feeling very pastoral. I allowed myself to feel my simple awe in response to what had taken place. In this unplanned moment, the service moved beyond what Essie had intended as she prepared to sing, beyond what Michael had intended as he chose the song for the day, beyond what Donna had intended as she chose the theme for the service, beyond even what the Gershwins had intended as they composed the song decades ago. In this moment, all the elements came together and, at least for me, transcended the possibilities of planning. One of our newest community members, a toddler, was mesmerized by the performance of a member who had been here for decades and was pretending that she was singing right along with her, a community-created duet. Now, music is an easy one. Music is often the go-to answer for crafting awe-fueled moments of transcendence. Our tastes in music may differ, but as Ian McEwan's Modern Testimony suggests, even if we're not musicians ourselves, we probably all know that moment of transcendence when the collective sound of musicians moves into a realm beyond what their rehearsals and preparations have planned. I'd even guess that many of the moments of awe you were conjuring just now included music. So okay, let's try another contemplative moment. When was a time you felt excluded in this building? And let's add to that a final contemplative moment. When was a time you felt truly held in this building? Now, I hope you'll continue to ruminate on your answers for the next few minutes and really for the rest of your lives, even in your times of solitude, because these questions address what I consider to be the three main building blocks of our Judson community. There are tons of other elements. We are an eclectic community, but the three blocks without which we and no authentic community can exist are these: a commitment to holding one another, no matter what the conflict, a commitment to including one another, no matter who we are, and a commitment to seeking awe together, no matter how hard that might be in an age of collective awe famine. Now, last week, we shared thoughts on solitude and celebrated Pentecost Sunday, that communal religious experience in which Jesus' followers encountered their own direct spiritual connections to the divine. I admitted that in order to even approach being in community with others, one should probably learn how to be alone and how to encounter a relationship with God in solitude. And appreciating that, this week, we move to the even broader implication of Pentecost Sunday, and that is the formation of the Christian community. Now, even if we'll never know the exact details of what happened on that day, we know this: the group was filled with awe. Not only each individual, but the group as a whole. The entire collective was filled with a reverence, a belief, even a fear that there was something larger than what they could immediately see with their human eyes. Something that transcended them as human individuals and as a human group. This was awe. This was a moment not unlike that in our modern testimony, when something happens that explodes your own expectations of what an experience might actually look, sound, smell, taste, and feel like. This is awe. Next month, this is very fancy, the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology will publish new research suggesting that awe just might be the ultimate collective emotion because, quote, it motivates people to do things that enhance the greater good. According to these findings, experiences that give us goosebumps, those spiritual happenings, rituals, dance, theater, and of course music, things that cause awe in us, quote, shift our focus from our narrow self-interest to the interests of the groups to which we belong. Now, as one whose livelihood depends on folks relying on collective spiritual participation, I am happy to have these findings published for all of my naysaying friends to see. But, as we articulated last week, awe can be sought and found in solitude. So, why get together? Why leave the house? I think awe is only part of the equation. So I believe that church, and Judson in particular, has the potential to serve as a laboratory for communal awe appreciation. I believe that the more we come together to worship, to create art, to put together harm reduction kits, to pray and meditate, to accompany ICE check-ins, to organize justice actions, the more we practice giving into the potential of awe, to the larger picture that awe can inspire. But I don't think that's enough, because awe is a fickle and fleeting thing that leaves us filled with fear. Spiritual experiences and religious experiences and spiritual but not religious experiences take us to the heights, but they can't and don't keep us up there forever. Reading our modern testimony and concluding that transcendence only occurs in musical ecstasy and can never be achieved otherwise doesn't cut it. But we can, as one of my favorite solitary recluse pop stars, Kate Bush, says, eat the music. It's from an album that nobody liked. Does anyone know this song, Eat the Music? Split me open, yeah. If we allow ourselves, we can incorporate the ecstatic into the everyday and feel that music breathing new life into ourselves and into our hopes for community. When we eat that music, when we devour it and seek ways to embody it, we flow down, as Rumi points out in our ancient testimony, down and down in always widening rings of being, joining people who are just as fearful as we are. Now, like McEwen's musicians, communal potential can't really be named, but must simply be invited to happen. We can't manufacture moments like Essie, Michael, and Joali made earlier this month. They happen when we create space by coming together to try it all again. We can create space for awe on our own, and I hope you do, but regular communal gatherings like the ones that happen in this building actually create the petri dish into which we toss our individualities that we've crafted in solitude and mix them together into this group that we call Judson. But I want to be wary. And that's where the other two building blocks come into play. Because we are going to continually fail at this. We are messes in solitude. And we are messes in community. Belonging to a community immediately suggests that there might be folks who don't belong to that community. But if we are truly eating the music, if we are claiming to embody this vaguely utopian idea that there is a way to form community that is inviting enough to draw individuals out of their fortresses of solitude, we have to commit. We have to commit to including one another no matter how we are, and we have to commit to holding one another no matter what the conflict. And with all the quick and superficial fixes to loneliness we've got, commitment to inclusion and to holding is a radical act. True, authentic, awe-interested communities move through acts of conflict with honesty. Awe feels great. Honesty does not feel great. It means being open about feeling unheard and ignored. It means holding others and trusting you'll be held. And the most active place I see this happening right now at Judson is at our periodic Saturday Pop Labs. Now, by now, many of you know what these are, but if you don't, they're basically extracurricular experiments in which we check the temperature of our community. Pop Lab. Populist laboratory. Now, Pop Lab started with general themes on theology, art, and politics, but we've now flowed down and down in always widening rings of being to explore more specific topics. Reproductive rights, LGBTQ concerns, race, and we've got one coming up in August on death and mortality. This is where I'm finding the true life and heart of the community. Pop Lab is the place where there is no preacher preaching at the front, no set template of how the order of service must go. Pop Lab is the place where all voices are invited, included, and held, and magically, when we open up the space for that, when we aren't just enforcing a fortress of community, but rather eating the music and leaving space for community to take shape, powerful moments of awe take place. At our Pop Lab on race this past month, I learned so much about how many voices go unheard and even unexpressed during a Sunday morning service here. I was humbled and awed, and that is a perfect combination. I encountered members who disagree with me, members who feel that they have to leave parts of themselves behind in order to participate here. I encountered members' hidden talents, desires, needs, and pains that I've never known. As with the prompts presented earlier that we meditated on, Pop Lab prompts and topics are just the beginning. How we fill the space those prompts open up matters. We only truly form community in the magic way musicians do when we're committing ourselves to inclusion and holding and not forcing the awe. The only thing more annoying than forced community is forced awe. Church often enforces both. But here's the only viable future for church. You heard it here first. We must be a laboratory that is more committed to the integrity of our experiments than to our own appearances. Collective awe will come, but it's not the product. Awe is the surprise that accompanies commitment to holding and being held, commitment to including and being included, and commitment to opening space for something that transcends what we are on our own. Please pray with me. Creative hands of the universe, grant us solitude, grant us community, give us more to see. Amen.